Well, hello again. Well, a lot to unpick from Eddie's press conference today, but before we get to talk of Declan Rice, Anthony Gordon and some really big injury news, I've brought us to a new location. Yeah, we're on Elmfield Road in Gosforth today. Now I'm told that these videos are doing wonders for property prices in these parts, and a resident of this street, who shall remain nameless, initially beginning with M, he said, will you come and do a video on my street? So I'm here by popular demand, so please put your requests below the line. We've just started there with a cheese and wine shop over our shoulder, so it tells you what sort of part of town we're in, doesn't it? But so let's try and stay on our best behaviour as we wander up Elmfield Road, and we've got to start with behaviour that wasn't so good, and that was the Anthony Gordon's reaction to being substituted down at Brentford last weekend. Now, there's two schools of thoughts on this. You can say it's passion, it's okay, you welcome it, all the rest of it, or you can take the view I've got, and I thought it was out of order. I thought it was poor form. I really did, and I say that because Newcastle, to go back to the old All Blacks analogy, they've got a no D-heads policy. You know, we've been aware of that for a long time now. To a man, they've bought into what Eddie Howe is trying to instill at the club in terms of that collective team spirit. Pictures we see in the dressing room afterwards, it's all for one. Now, for Anthony Gordon to react like he did when he was brought off, it just showed someone who wasn't up to speed with Eddie's way of work, and like I said, that squad mentality. If he'd been brought off in the 85th minute, having been brought on as a sub at half time, okay, you might understand there's a little degree of aggravation there, but this was obvious to everybody inside the stadium what Eddie Howe was doing. It was the 95th minute, he was running down the clock. Anthony Gordon himself was brought in because he's meant to have that S-Housery mentality. He's supposed to understand these sort of tactics. So for him to react like he did, throwing his arms up in the air and brushing Eddie off, I thought it was poor, I must admit. But knowing Eddie as we do, he was never going to make an issue out of it. And today at the press conference, now I say he was never going to make an issue out of it. He didn't shut it down today. He was happy to talk about it, and he spoke about it at length because I think he clearly wanted to send a message, and that was that sort of behaviour won't be tolerated. He revealed that he's spoken to Anthony Gordon this week. The player has apologised to him, and that he's just reminded him of what I've just spoken about. He's got to get up to speed with that squad mentality and everything which Newcastle's success has been built on, where even the players who are out of the team are contributing. They're not kicking up a fuss. Everyone understands and is bought into the greater good of what they're trying to achieve. And for Gordon to do that, it just needed a 15-minute conversation with Eddie this week. But being the man manager he is, the conversation is the extent of the disciplinary process, so to speak. It doesn't go any further, and he said that Anthony Gordon has trained well, and he's got to work with a young man, to bring about the very best of his talent. That was the story I've written immediately after the press conference. But also there was some pretty significant injury news as well. Now starting with Miguel Almiron, who looks, we learn to read Eddie when it comes to fitness and otherwise, but for him to say that Miguel Almiron was back in training, and they'll see how he comes through today's session, that tells us that he will be on the bench down at Aston Villa tomorrow, which is 2 weeks ahead of schedule, which is a huge boost for them. Another option, a player who at his best this season has been up there with the top 2 or 3 performers for Newcastle, and it's especially important bearing in mind that Alan St-Maximin won't be down at Villa tomorrow. Now he's out in France at the moment with a member of Newcastle's medical team undergoing treatment on a hamstring injury. Now we're told it's not serious. He'll return to Tyneside next week, and my understanding is that there's a likelihood that he'll be on the bench for the Spurs game on the Sunday. So good news, if not great news, on St-Maximin, bearing in mind just when he seemed to be finding a little bit of form again, he goes and breaks down. And part of the problem with St-Max is that I think we'll always have this, because the greatest indicator of the future is always the past, and St-Maximin has struggled with these problems for a long time now. So the danger is he comes back, of course he's out with the team, and then it takes him 2 or 3 weeks again to get up to speed. So yeah, the other significant bit of fitness news. Of course, Bruno Guimaraes revealed after the game down at Brentford last week that he was struggling with an ankle injury, which we knew about. I think it's one of these where every now and again he feels it or he twists it, but it's not serious enough to keep him out. Now, Eddie Howe said that as of this week, going into the game down at Villa tomorrow, he is, quote, fully fit, and there are no issues there. But it is something they're probably going to have to look at. So yeah. Now, elsewhere, and this is something else which we've written about coming out with the press conference, and I thought it was a very telling answer. Eddie Howe was asked if players such as Declan Rice, and Declan Rice was named, if they will be on the list of targets this summer if Newcastle do qualify for the Champions League. And Eddie's answer was interesting in that he didn't shut it down. Now, previously, all the conversations I've had around Newcastle recruitment, various sources have always said the likes of Declan Rice, Premier League players at a premium, that's just not their model. Their model is identifying a Bruno Guimaraes for 36 million, Sven Botman 32 million, and turning them into 50, 60, 70, 80 million pound players. It's proven very successful so far, and they felt no need to deviate from that. Their scouting, their recruitment has been brilliant. We've got to say that. But, the number one priority this summer is, what insiders are calling a number 6, someone who's got physicality, who's got stamina, can shield the back four, but can also play. Now, if you're going for the very, very best in the land who's going to be on the market in the coming months, that is Declan Rice, and that is why the name was put to Eddie. Now, where this might change is if Newcastle do qualify for the Champions League. Now, everything I thought I knew about Newcastle's recruitment and the transfer model and FFP, and I've been saying the same for a long time now, that type of player. For example, if James Maddison, they try to steal James Maddison at 40-45 million pound. If all of a sudden James Maddison is going for 60-65, that's probably not the market there that they would have been in. But do things change now? Have we got to go back and revisit those conversations? Eddie's already admitted himself that Newcastle are working to 2 different budgets this summer, one which allows for Europa/Conference League qualification, and one which allows for a top 4 finish. And bearing in mind now, the odds on to finish inside the top 4, I've got no doubt they'll be playing Champions League football next season. Of that I'm convinced. So to that end, do players like Declan Rice, if the asking price is what, 80 million pound, we're led to believe, that's only 20 million more than they paid for Alexander Isak last summer, would they come into the equation? Now, he might be very hard, he might have his heart set on staying in London and going to what could be the champions in Arsenal, but nonetheless, that is something us as reporters now, we're gonna have to revisit that and just try and get our head around and a better handle on exactly what Champions League qualification would mean for the budget, because without it, all of the noises were that this summer might be, it would be another sensible one with, perhaps 2 or 3 signings in that sort of, 25, 30 million pound bracket, players where you're trying to identify value and then train them on and coach them on, as Eddie Howe has proven, more than capable of doing. So yeah, we'll have to see on that front with regard to transfers. Now, getting back to the football, of course, we should mention it down at Aston Villa tomorrow. And I've just bumped into a friend there on the high street, and they said, you take a point. They would take a point there down at Aston Villa. I said, why? Why should they take a point? No, Newcastle are better than Aston Villa. The same way they were better than West Ham. The same way they were better than Brentford. Newcastle have won 5 on the spin now. And I was asked earlier in the week, what is the biggest reason for Newcastle's turnaround, this revival in the season? And while there are so many different factors to it, I just think if you've got 2 forwards for the first time this season, and for the first time in many seasons, 2 top forwards who are fit and on form, now that just affects everything. It impacts on the rest of the team. All of a sudden, the defence aren't going into games thinking we've got to keep 0 here just to protect the point, as was the case, January, February time. I just think it makes all the difference, and it's because of that goal threat, and because of the impact that's had on the midfield as well. You've got Bruno Guimaraes and Joe Linton at the moment, you know, in the best form they've been for me. Of all the performances in recent weeks, I would say Bruno down at West Ham and Joe Linton at Brentford were just an absolute a different level, you know, real elite displays. And while you've got players almost from 1 to 11 and beyond, you know, coming off the bench, you know, there's 15 or 16 now who you look at and you would call them, you know, genuine players who are vying for a start and first team players. That number during the good run, sort of pre-Christmas time, it was only 12 or 13 if we're being honest. So there's competition, there's fitness, there's form. So for me, they should be going down there and beating Aston Villa. I won't be at the game tomorrow. Actually, it's the youngest of my 3 sons. It's his 2nd birthday, so that sadly rules me out. But I will be maintaining my top 4 interest by going out to the City Ground on Sunday to cover Nottingham Forest versus Manchester United. So I may bring you a few thoughts on that from a Newcastle perspective afterwards. Listen, guys, thank you again for watching. I hope you've enjoyed our little stroll through the leafy, affluent surrounds of this part of the world. So take care. I always forget, don't I? You know, please hit subscribe, hit like. It really does help with the channel. If you are going down to Villa, safe travels. Good luck, stay tuned, enjoy yourselves, and thanks for watching, guys. Bye bye.